Hi there, and welcome to Citizenay, the platform where we speak truth to power. I wrote a little thing on TikTok and other platforms a few days ago where we actually spoke about our rights as sovereigns. Um, and the reason why I wrote that is because I wrote the words to the effect that we Africans, sovereigns of the entire African continent, hereby collectively reject um, treaties from 400 years ago from all the colonials to date. We hereby reassert our collective absolute authority over our land and resources. Ashe, Citizenay. The reason why I wrote that was because it occurred to me that a lot of what the Western powers have done since over 400 years ago was they wrote their so-called treaties. And that treaty, they used it to take control of our land. We now need to reassert our own uh, control over the land by actually repudiating and rejecting all of their treaties combined, everything they've ever written to date, because it's by the basis of those treaties that the continued exploitation, oppression, and suppression of Africans on the African continent continues till this day. So, so those words I want you to really memorize. Again, we're going to read it because something else also occurred to me as I was talking. To something else occurred to me, and I think it's worth really noting. Sorry, it is worth noting. It is worth noting what I observed. And let's go to the next part of it. So I'm going to just quickly go here. Okay. Don't know what it's doing, but anyway, we'll get here. So this is another thing I noticed. Um, Whereas in the European Union, there is some sort of protection of the people and it's signed into a charter. We don't actually have that on African continent. There is something written, but it's loosely. There is no binding contract per se that has any financial or punitive consequences for not adhering to human rights laws in Africa. And I'll show you in detail in due course. But I want you to look at this. There is currently no treaty among Africans about protecting African resources for the benefit of Africans on the African continent. There's no treaty. There's no treaty. And this is what I mean. Those resources, again, I maintain, as by dint of the fact that we are sovereigns on the African continent, those resources should come to Africans first. But what has happened with the foreign external treaties being imposed on Africa, the resources are leaving Africa, literally being taken out of Africa, with Africans not having any idea that those resources are leaving in many towns and villages and all in hinterlands. They don't know because those treaties are signed by the puppets that the foreign that the colonials have imposed on Africans, and that has meant that they stripped Africa of our resources again and again and again and again and again. So I'm bringing this to. I'm trying to put it together. Firstly, for us to understand that we actually have all control of our land and resources, and we can reject the treaties collectively. And then, secondly, to make us know that in all the 50 nations that the 54 nations created by the colonials, it's just been designed to be resource extraction point. Let me give you a case in point. On the African continent, listen to this. Watch this now. I'm going to show you something. I'll come back to this later. I beg your pardon. I'm going to come back to where is it? Where is it? I'll show you in a minute. Where is it? I saw something and I wanted to bring our attention to it. Now, they talk about African resources, but from the context of just conservation. It doesn't really talk about it as a law. It says here, and I wanted to. This is very, very interesting. I read it and I was like, okay, so I now understand what's going on, and it's worth sharing with us all. Anyway, I think it's worth sharing. Okay, let me. Can I do this? Yes, I can do this. So, okay, I can. It's not doing what I wanted to do for some reason. I don't know why it's doing that. Okay, let me do this. Try that again. Okay, don't worry. I'll read it. I'll read it. It says Ecolex, African Conservation African Convention on the Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources objectives to encourage conservation, utilization, and development of soil, water, flora, and fauna for the present and future welfare of mankind. Not of Africans, of mankind. From an economic, nutritional, scientific, educational, cultural, and aesthetic point of view. Very interesting that it doesn't talk about from an African point of view. Whereas if it was anything to do with Europe, for example, let me show you what I mean. European Human Rights and Community, rights now. It says signed in 1950 by the Council of Europe, the European Convention on Human Rights is an international treaty to protect human rights and fundamental freedoms in Europe. All 46 countries forming the Council of Europe are party to the convention, of which 27 of which are members of the EU. So, can you see this is what I'm saying? We are not in control on our African continent of anything, neither of our resources or our land, and our people do not have any connection with that, with the land. There is a word I want you to really bear in mind. It's something I looked at. A treaty. What is a treaty? A written agreement between two or more countries formally approved and signed by their leaders. A peace treaty, the Treaty of the European Union. We've signed the concluded the treaty with the neighboring state to limit emissions of harmful gases. So I'm just giving an example. So Africa now, we don't have a treaty. There needs to be a treaty among African countries as to how and where our resources are going. We need to have control because currently the resources are leaving Africa and under the guise of business. When they say they're coming to invest, they're not coming to invest in Africa. The resources is only going one way. There is no fund staying in Africa. The fund stays in the Western banks, and the resources leaves Africa for Western countries. It's time we really understand this. So I really wanted to bring that home, that point, and I'll come and probably talk about it again on a live broadcast. But I'm gonna go back to the point I was making earlier on. There is currently no treaty among Africans about African nations, I should say. So let me just change that to African nations. Sorry, as I'm writing African nations. So let me make sure that the wording has to be right. African nations, yeah, yeah. About protecting, yeah, protecting African resources for the benefit of Africans on the African continent. There is none. I'm doing the work. I'm doing the check. And these are the kind of things that I like to look at, so we understand what is being done. There isn't. They talk about good governance. They talk about, but it's all about signing deals with people that come to take African resources on the cheap, and that is not benefiting Africans. It's not for the benefit of Africans. It's for the benefit of the colonials. That is what is going on. So I'm putting it to you that consider what I said. There is currently no treaty among African nations about protecting African resources for the benefit of Africans on the continent. There's nothing. And it's evidenced by the fact that we're impoverished because the resources is only going one way, out of Africa. It's not circulating in Africa, it's going out of Africa. And that is why I say we need to have this. The people of Africa need to understand that, and we need to reassert our authority as sovereigns. We Africans, sovereigns of the entire African continent, hereby collectively reject treaties from over 400 years ago, from all colonials to date. We hereby reassert our collective absolute authority over our land and resources, our share. And our ancestors have accented to this, and we are stating it now. We are bringing it to your notice that 400 years of treaties has been about exploiting African resources, not for the benefit of Africans. Point to one benefit of those treaties to Africans. Zero. So we have to now begin to put this in place. We have to reject it. And that includes the constitutions, 54 constitutions. We reject them. What we need to do, however, in the case of the constitution that I've been talking about, is to begin to make sure that the powers that are within them, they are firstly translated into our local languages, which is what we're doing, which is what you've seen me do. And then within that, the people begin to participate in the process of governance through that knowledge of the constitution and local languages, and ultimately to change the constitution using our powers of sovereignty. Now we are going to exercise our sovereignty for the first time. And I'd start with saying this: we Africans, sovereigns of the entire African continent, hereby collectively reject treaties from 400 years ago from all colonials to date. We hereby reassert our collective authority over land and resources. Ashe. We are going to be saying that those resources has to why. And the reason why we're doing that is because, one, we are now have to make sure that every country on the African continent has to ensure that whatever they're doing, the resources first and foremost benefits Africans. Now, when each of the countries now start writing the constitution, what should be in it is that those resources are for the people, and they must be demonstrated, it must be evident that before it leaves the African continent, there is clear benefit for the people of Africa. Roads, water, light, schools, bridges, healthcare, safety, security. Our priority must be Africa first. So this is what this is about. Let me know your thoughts on this. It is interesting. It's a very important point that I wanted to raise. And like I said, I'm going to leave us with this line here to really think. What are your thoughts on what you just saw? We Africans, sovereigns of the entire African continent, hereby collectively reject treaties from 400 years ago from all colonials to date. We reject everything they've done to date. We hereby reassert our collective absolute authority over our land and resources. We have to put this out there because we, the people, this is one of the biggest lies that have been told when they come with these religions of Islam and Christianity. They make you believe that you're a sinner, you're what? Nothing. Again, Islam believes that you're a slave to God. And all of that, it takes your focus away from the fact that you are a sovereign on the African continent. And collectively, you can use that sovereignty to ensure that the resources in your land start benefiting you. That is something you can do. The perception that they're giving you is to make you believe that you are powerless. But in every community, if you can do this, and all of this will be written in local languages, it has to be translated to local languages. Very, very important. Give me 1 sec. I'll show you what this looks like in Yoruba language so that you can actually understand it as well. Give me 1 sec. 1 sec. So, here's one I made earlier. Again, translating what you see on the screen into local languages. Let me just quickly make the change. So it might be, just bear with me if it's a little bit rusty, but we're trying to get it working as much as we can. Okay, so that's better. So what you see above there, I'm translating into Yoruba language. This is in Yoruba language now. Let me just quickly, I'll make some changes to it, but you get the idea of where I'm coming from. It's So we want people to know this. Àwa ọmọ ilẹ̀ Áfíríkà, àwọn aláṣẹ ti gbogbo ilẹ̀ Áfíríkà, nípa bẹ́ẹ̀ kọ àwọn àdéhùn láti irínwó ọdún sẹ́yìn láti gbogbo ọwọ́ àwọn amúnisìn títí di òní olónìí àṣẹ. So in effect, we're just saying the same thing, that we reject all the treaties because we now know that those treaties, since the treaties that they've used, that our ancestors signed, they've been using it to loot from us Africans. We now need our own treaties over our resources. So we first need to actually capture all of those things, all of those treaties, capture all of them, including the present ones. And make notice now that we are now saying, as people collectively, we reject it. It is not for our benefit. And then now, going forward, we now start participating in our process of governance. And that's why we're talking about the need for you to know your rights in your local language and begin to participate in your governance and hold your governance to account. And then going forward, we would then strongly urge that right now, there has to be a treaty on the African continent that actually protects African resources for African people first and foremost. I'm going to state that as a final closure on this document, on this topic, on this broadcast. But let me know your thoughts on it. 1 second, please. So, yeah, like you said, you can see what I've just done on the screen there. We're going to screen that. We will share that. I want to know your thoughts on it. I'd like to know your thoughts on it. So, Now that we now know that there is currently no treaty among African nations about protecting African resources for the benefit of Africans on the African continent, who, after all, are the sovereigns, I therefore propose a binding treaty among African nations about protecting African resources for the benefit of Africans on the African continent. That is what we need to do right now. We need to make sure to stop all of this looting by these marauders. They're clearly and they bring in monkeypox because they want to justify why they are there. They want to take the focus away from the fact that they are looting resources in Congo as we speak. They are looting and unaliving as many Africans as possible to ensure that they continue to take our resources. And I'm saying we need to put a treaty in place. Now, all of this, it requires awareness. We, the people, we now know. Once we know we have these powers, we don't want you on our land. You need to leave. And when the more of us know this, the more difficult it becomes for them to come and use any of this contract or whatever they want to call it to come and loot. Because we, the people, can actually say, no, go. That is what the people of Niger did. The people of Niger went to the French embassy and said, no, you need to leave our land. And the same thing in Burkina Faso, the same thing in Mali. So we need to support and work with Ibrahim Traore in all of this. He's a great man, and you'll be seeing something on that anyway. It is very important that we need a treaty on the African continent that's actually ensuring that will make sure that the resources of the Africa of Africa is for the benefit of Africans first and foremost. Let me know your thoughts on this. I've just put it out there. I wanted to just really hear views, and it's something that I've been looking at and sort of musing about a lot. And I'm thinking that's the best way to help us on the African continent. We don't have control of our resources. They even come and tell us that they even tell us how to use and how to preserve those things for them to be able to have access to. Any deal we signed is all about taking the resources out of country. They are in control of the financial structures and the systems. So when they even lend us money, that money never stays in Africa. It stays out in Europe or in the US, and then they will then give crumbs. And those puppets have to bank the money with them. And when, of course, when they leave this out, the money still stays in the West. This is a bad deal for Africa, a terribly bad deal. We need our own financial system. Based on what I've just told you now, you can now see that we need our own financial system. What are your thoughts on this? Let's have your views. It is something that I just wanted to really look at and really come up with ideas and suggestions. And let us, we want to extend ideas as Africans. Keep in mind, like I said, this is the reality of what we face on the continent. That's the reality. You know, the reality of what we face is what I'm showing you on the screen. You know, um, you know, we reject it. We have to reject those treaties because it's the foundation of the world as it is today. And that is what they are building. From the time they put those treaties in place to now, it is those that we are viewing the world through those lenses. And to rewrite a new world, we need to create a new system: financial, educational, economic, all of it. And now our people must be involved in that process at the ground, from the ground up, in their local languages. Anyway, what are your thoughts on this? How do you view this? Let us hear your thoughts. You're, of course, watching Citizenay, the platform where we speak truth to power. I might come back live later on. I'm a little bit tired. I've had to do one or two things, and sometimes you just have to step off a little bit, but I'm still with this project, as you can clearly see, 100%. Even as I was away, I was still posting a few things so you could see that there's a commitment to this, and many of us. So we need to be looking at this thing because they've used treaties to actually enslave Africa. And I believe we have to use the same way to free ourselves. Sign up and put a binding treaty. And of course, we are still having to look at, supporting Ibrahim Traore and others. We ultimately have to have our own way in which we can actually protect. We can make sure that we protect the continent from exploitation and invasion by those who are clearly intent on exploiting Africa and getting everything for free from Africa. No more of that. The people need to be knowing what's going on and how they can use their powers of sovereignty to hold their governors to account and to ensure that they make treaties that will be for the benefit, collective benefit of Africans on the African continent. Black Africans, I specifically state. Yes, we've suffered enough. Now we need to protect ourselves on our continent, and make sure that we have any of those nations. They have to be signed up to this. It's not a question of if you are signing up, and you must make sure. And there has to be things in place to make sure that there will be punitive costs to go along with it for failure to adhere to that, because that is what a treaty means. If you fail to do that, there has to be things, and we need to devise systems and ways in which that can actually happen on the African continent, because the oppression of African people has gone on long enough. Um, you notice that nothing on there is talking about any religion. It's talking about the rights of the citizens as sovereign to benefit their resources. So that's what we need to focus on. Anyway, what are your thoughts? You are, of course, listening to Citizenay, the platform where we speak truth to power. Please go ahead and subscribe to us. YouTube are playing a few games, and I won't be able to monetize it now for some time. It doesn't matter. It's not been, like I said, I went into this in good faith, but like I said, it doesn't matter. What we want to do is to make sure we continue to give ourselves important information like this. So have a listen, have a read. What do you think? What are your thoughts on this? It's very important that we begin to actually exercise those powers. I want you to really think about this point here, to really understand that. Currently, no treaty among African nations about protecting African resources for the benefit of Africans on the continent. No treaty whatsoever. And yet, our resources have been taken all over the world. And if they are being taken from us, those resources are being taken from the people who are the sovereigns. Anything in your soil, you are a sovereign, and it's being taken without your permission. And to be able to safeguard that, we need a treaty in place on the African continent to protect the resources for Africans, first and foremost. A treaty has to be in place, and systems to ensure that, to enforce that treaty. We have to enforce the treaty. Now, once we start enforcing it, and that's why I say I therefore propose a binding treaty among African nations about protecting African resources for the benefit of Africans on the African continent. What are your thoughts? Let's hear from you. You're, of course, watching Citizenay, the platform where we speak truth to power. Don't forget, go ahead and subscribe to us on YouTube and on TikTok as well. Please subscribe, follow us on YouTube and TikTok, and this will be shared on TikTok as well. Let's hear your thoughts. Please subscribe, share. Today is the Ojogun, the third day in the Yoruba week. We call it, and I remember and I recall, it's important we look at the days of the week in African terms, not in European terms. On the African continent, we have to follow the days of our ancestors, the days they created. Today is Ojogun, in this case, in Yoruba language, and there will be other names that you have it um, in other parts of Africa. The Dogon will have their own names, the Malians will have, and that's what we want to know. We need to begin to connect with our ancestors. Um, as we go forward more and more, our ancestors will be directing our actions, and they'll be ensuring that in the spiritual realm, more work will be done to continue to awake as many Africans as possible. We are here now. This time, Africa is ready to rise, and we're doing the work that needs to be done, and we'll progress. And we are going to free. Africa is already free in the spiritual world. What is left to remain now? What is left now to do is to just manifest this in the physical realm, and that's what we're doing right now. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Citizenay, the platform where we speak truth to power. Let's hear from you. What are your thoughts on this? I'll be back later on. Thank you, and bye for now. Bye for now.